What's more fun than hanging out with your friends? Well, according to Dead by Daylight, that would be killing them. Welcome to 30 Minutes to Impress, the show where we believe that first impressions are everything. We play the first 30 minutes of a game, and then give our thoughts on the game for you, the modern consumer. Today, we're taking a look at a multiplayer horror game called Dead by Daylight. Now, I'm aware that this game has been out for quite some time, but it just so happened to be free on Steam last weekend, so I decided to download the game and share whether or not I feel like this game is worth the purchase. If you liked the video, feel free to hit up that like button and also be sure to let us know what games you want us to look at next. Anyways, let's get started. So if you've even so much as glanced at a Friday the 13th movie before, then you know exactly what this game is about. 4 people stranded in the woods somewhere, one crazy killer with a chainsaw, and several hours of pure terror and adrenaline to be had. This should of course come with the warning that there will be gratuitous amounts of violence in this game. If you're a diehard slasher horror fan, then you probably won't so much as blink while playing this game. But if you're a non-horror person whose scariest horror experience is when Nintendo changed the design of Ash Ketchum, then this game may be just a little bit too intense for you. So, similar to the game Evolve, this is a multiplayer-only game that has 4 weak players going up against 1 powerful player. The main distinction, however, is that where in Evolve, the 4 players could work together to kill the 5th guy, here you can only run and hide and pray that you don't get caught. The main reason for the emphasis on stealth is because player number 5 has a chainsaw, and everyone else only has skinny jeans. And although your acid-washed Abercrombie jeans are totally fetch and popular, they will do very little to prevent a blade from running through your lower torso. So I imagine the elevator pitch for this game sounded something like this: deadly hide and seek with chainsaws. That's a pretty good pitch because it's exactly what the game is going for. The 4 regular people, we can call them the survivors, are trapped in a large open environment, and their only way out is to power up 5 generators, which will allow them to open up a gate and escape. The survivors' jobs are to hide from the killer, power up the generators, and then try to rescue their friends whenever the killer catches one of them. And the killer's job, of course, is the exact opposite. He focuses on finding the survivors, stopping them from starting the generators, and then hanging them on giant fishhooks so that they can be sacrificed to its giant spider god. No joke, that's actually what happens. When I booted up this game, I realized that this would be my very first match, and therefore I'd be a noob amongst noobs. So when given the chance to play as a killer or the survivor, I picked survivor, so that way I could better learn the controls. My first 3 matches went as follows: spawn in, run in circles for a few minutes, get caught by the killer, get hung on a fishhook, be absorbed into the spider god, rinse and repeat. I actually managed to touch one of the generators on the 3rd attempt, but that didn't last long and I was promptly returned to my favorite fishhook. It was becoming frustrating losing this much, and I realized that I was having a hard time because I didn't know how the killer worked and controlled. If you aren't aware of how your opponent operates, then you're unable to counter them. Therefore, in order to learn how to beat the killer, I became the killer. So the first thing I learned as the newest serial killer initiate is that you play in first person as opposed to the 3rd person view of the survivors. This gives you a smaller field of vision and makes it harder to hunt down your opponents. I also learned that survivors can place down obstacles while you're chasing them, which serves to slow you down and help them to escape. This is good, because it doesn't make the survivors quite as helpless as I had first thought. When it came time to hunt down the survivors, I had imagined that the killer would have some sort of murder vision like in Assassin's Creed. But the game actually gives the killer very little to work with. Sure, you can see the locations of the generators and fishhooks, but everything else relies on you paying attention to the environment and listening to sound cues. I actually called a few people just because I could hear the scared breathing of one of the people hiding in the tall grass. That is pretty cool, and I have genuinely never won a multiplayer game just because I heard someone breathing. If you're looking for a more unique multiplayer game, then this may end up being just what you're looking for. I've touched on this briefly already, but I was actually really surprised by how many checks and balances this game has to make sure one side never feels overpowered. I figured that the dude with the chainsaw would have the advantage for obvious reasons, but as long as everyone playing is competent, it should actually be a pretty even match. For example, when the killer catches someone and hangs them on a fishhook, it actually isn't an instant death. It takes about a minute for them to, be absorbed by the giant spider god. During this time, other survivors can come and try to rescue their friend, or they can take this time to turn on the other generators and escape. This puts the killer in a difficult situation because he has to choose between either guarding his victim while the other survivors power up the generators, or he can leave to hunt down the other survivors while they can just circle back around and free the survivor while the killer's away. This balance of risk and reward does make it a lot more fun to play as both sides, and I genuinely enjoyed playing regardless of whether I was murdering fools or just fleeing for my life. So ultimately, whether you're running in terror or introducing a lead pipe to someone's face, the most important question to ask when looking at this game is whether or not you're having fun with it. If I could say nothing else about the game, I would say yes, it is fun. It's a lot of fun actually. However, since the contents of this video are not limited to the length of a single tweet, I can say there is a slight catch to the fun to be had. There's nothing wrong with this game on a technical standpoint. The graphics are good, the sound design is solid, I like the creativity that went into the looks of the killers. Everything is actually really well done. What I'm afraid of, however, is that there just isn't enough content in this game to keep you playing. After the first several hours of it, what else is there to do? I think Dead by Daylight has the same problem that Evolve has. Both games are fun to play by yourself, both games are even more fun to play with friends, but then they're kinda just one-trick ponies. Once you've done the same thing a few dozen times, you start to realize the game's a mile wide but an inch deep. There are only so many times you can hide behind the same bale of hay as a survivor, and as the killer, impaling people on fishhooks starts to lose its appeal after the 7th or 8th time. What this game needed was a bit more variety to justify its $20 price point, and the fact that this game is basically saying that it's worth a third of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim or Final Fantasy XV concerns me slightly. The developers have already released multiple expansions and add-ons for the game, so that's a positive sign. But for the time being, I think this game would have been better off either as a free-to-play game or priced a bit cheaper at $5 to $10 instead of $20. So for my closing thoughts, please remember that I literally only played this game for about half an hour. Maybe I judged the game too harshly, and there's a whole breadth of content just waiting beneath the surface. Perhaps the game completely changes at the 45-minute mark, and I just barely missed it. For now, however, I'll end by saying this. The game is fun, and I think you'll have a great time, but I think you should only get it if it's either on sale or if you've got friends to play it with. Thanks for watching, everyone, have a great day, and if a killer's chasing you, never split the party. That never ends well. See ya!